Wants versus needs. Big topic around this time of the year. Hi, I'm Penny with Family and Community Support Services. I'm here with Amanda to talk to you today about helping your young adults, emerging adults, to better understand the concept of wants versus needs. Hi, Amanda.
Hello. Yes, it is the holiday season upon us, and I know from my point of view, I'm getting lots of Christmas lists all of a sudden for gifts and whatnot. So Penny and I thought this would be a good topic to talk about as far as where our kids are concerned and how we can help them grow through this process. So we are going to talk about needs versus wants, and just to define that, so needs is those things that we have to survive, and wants are those things that we want, the kind of nice to haves, the things that make our lives a little easier sometimes. I know as adults, we sometimes struggle between needs and wants as well. And certainly kids from, little to beyond adults are still struggling with that sometimes. So we're talking about independence, and our teenagers are wanting that opportunity to kind of do what they want when they want to do it, but at the same time, they're relying on us for things like money or a ride or, all of those things again that are kind of the wants, but not necessarily the needs. And so I thought I'd put together just a quick list of things that we can kind of help our kids walk through when we're talking about needs and wants. And we need to consider that it's important, the things that they want are important for them in that moment. So the same as, us being able to provide a house over all of our family's heads and have food on the table, that same level of need is where our teens and our tweens are at in the moment, right? Their impulse control isn't fully developed and their prefrontal cortexes aren't as well. So this is real life to them. So some of my tips, yes, Penny.
Can I just interject? Sorry, but it's popping into my head that when you say that, I think it's super important to remind caregivers and parents that shaming them about their wants is very counterproductive. You don't have to give them all of their wants, but just sort of joining them in that wishing experience, right? And tell me why you want that. What's cool about that for you, right? That's just a really excellent connecting moment, and they feel heard. And then, it might still be a no, you can't have it. But I think that's super important, especially around the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
To have a little space for those feelings of disappointment and, right, not getting what you want maybe, and those kinds of things.
Yeah, for sure. So that leads us right into my first point, which is communication. So keeping our teens kind of in the know about what's happening in the house. Again, we talk about age appropriateness, and you shouldn't tell them that, you don't have any money and that you're, in the hole or anything. But of course, they're starting to understand, what, like money's tight right now. We can't necessarily go out and buy those things that we want. We need to stick to our needs at this point. And with that, but let's, like you said, Penny, let's keep talking about it. Let's keep, making those lists. And I know parents say to their kids, put it on your Christmas list or put it on your birthday list, and that might pop up at some point, right? And so, like you said, just keeping those lines of communication open and having them be heard. I love that you said that, for sure. So my second point that goes with communication is boundaries. So teaching our kids boundaries, and how often should we be asking for things? How often should we be like, oh, hey, wait a minute, that's not necessarily something that I need in this moment, right? So with that, teaching that responsibility of, okay, there's boundaries in life. Every time you want to go to the store, I can't take you to the store, right? Every time you want 20 bucks to go hang out with your friends, I can't necessarily do that for you, right? So teaching those boundaries so that you're not feeling guilty, because they're understanding kind of where you're at, if that makes sense. So then my next one would be compromising. So I want to preface this a little bit. Compromise doesn't always have to happen, but when we're talking about communication and setting boundaries, especially with our teens, um, compromise on what kinds of things you can compromise. So if those, name brand jeans are just too far out of your budget, go looking in the secondhand stores, asking friends who have kids that are maybe older than you, like, hey, when you get the opportunity, when you need to hand me down some clothes, I'd love that, right? Searching online garage sales for not only the clothes, but some of the electronic stuff, right? All of those things brand new are really pricey, but they don't understand, like we said in the beginning, right? It's a need for them because they need to fit in or whatever it is that they want to do, right? And so compromising somehow and just being like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I'll go to, the thrift store and see if I can find you a couple pairs of jeans. And we're not going to have a sign outside the house that says, hey, mom got these at the thrift store, right? You're fitting in the same way that you'd like to. So that's what I kind of mean by compromise, for sure. Again, that opportunity to learn responsibilities, like we talked about, but not just in needs and wants, but understanding money, understanding what bills we need to be paying. I know I see a lot of memes, quotes and stuff on social media that say, like, why aren't we teaching our kids how to, budget and all of this in school, which they do a little bit of, but as parents, we need to also be teaching them that, right? And so, the value of a dollar, that conversation has to happen. And they're gonna get $100 for Christmas and they're gonna want to spend all their money, and then they're gonna learn that, oh, I have no more money left, right? And turning those into kind of learning opportunities for our kids. Yeah.
And if you create, like, if you allowance your kids, like, allowance is a great starter, like, even from when they're little, and allowing them some freedom. So in our family, it was 3 jars. We had spending jar, saving jar, and charity jar. So the saving jar was their piggy bank. And they could divide that money 3 ways, any way they chose, but they had to put some in each jar. And it's been interesting over the years just watching them with that. And it does.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as they grow right into those tween and teenage years, we are going to see a dramatic difference, drastic choices being made, because again, that impulse control, right? They have it in hand and it's burning a hole in their pocket. So just teaching them that responsibility when, if your money's gone and there's nothing you can do until you get it back, right? And so, and then remember that they're teenagers, right? And so they're gonna make mistakes. They're gonna learn from them, like we all do, right? When we talk about growth mindsets, it's I haven't got it yet, or I can't do this yet, or I'm gonna learn from this, right? Mistakes are proof that you're trying. All those kind of sayings are things that we as parents need to remind ourselves of as well, while we're going through this process with teenagers, because of course they're going to try and get as much as they can out of us. Of course they're going to push buttons. Of course they're going to do all of these things that we're just like, what the heck is happening, right? But if we just keep it as, parent and teenager, and we're in this together, and I'm going to help you, and these are the things that I did, these are the things I did wrong, maybe you want to watch that, those kind of things. I know my daughter is the complete opposite of me when it comes to money and wants and needs, and so they can kind of do it in a good way, by the way. The opposite of me. But yeah, like just realizing that they're going to make mistakes and that it's going to be okay. Just as a follow-up to that, if you have to have family meetings, if you have to have those, behavior contracts, we talk a lot about that in Triple P, where, have a sit-down conversation when you're not in the middle of the, nitty gritty, right? And have, okay, well, if this happens, what happens if, your friends are all going to the trampoline park and you want to go, but I've already given you your limit to this month or whatever, right? Do you have $20? Are you going to just kind of keep that extra money just in case, right? And doing it when you're not in the middle of it, so you're not arguing, right? that's the best time to do it, and contracts as well, right?
And I think that goes, my thoughts keep going back to that boundaries area you were talking about. One of, in my experience, the really important boundary is not, so if you do say, okay, you need to, this is your money for the month, and not sort of giving in, and not letting them learn that lesson of, oh, well, if I spent it on, you don't need to say I told you so, or say things like, well, if you hadn't spent all your money on the jeans, you'd be able to go to the trampoline park. But letting them learn that they'll figure it out, they know. So using that as that good learning opportunity for boundaries, as well as, oh yeah, crud, you really wanted to go to the trampoline park, but you can't because you don't have enough money. That really sucks. End of, right? In our house, it was shopping on Wish. Yes, you can buy a smartwatch for $8. What do you suppose that smartwatch might look like, and how might it work? So there's all these beautiful lessons in our world between learning about wants and needs. And I also read a neat little thing about that. It's an excellent segue to gratitude, right? So when you can teach your kids the difference between wants and needs, they can start to feel a little more grateful about the needs that they already have met.
Yeah.
And in our house, we talk about what things cost, and we have for quite a while. And it's so funny because they'll be like, wow, that's so cheap. And I'll be like, oh, well, this costs this much, but this costs that much. And they'll be like, oh, well, that isn't cheap. That's expensive. Yeah. So those real life lessons of just being a part of a family and knowing that, okay, we have to pay so much for electricity every month. Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, that is a lot. Oh yeah, life, it just gives you all these great chances.
It really does. And thank you again for talking about that shame component, and not that I told you so, right? Because we don't want to be shaming our kids no matter what's happening. I think that's one of our biggest lessons in building relationships with our kids and keeping those connections alive, right? If we're always saying I told you so, or why'd you spend all your money, now you're not gonna go anywhere, you're right, it's all your fault, those kind of things, it's just not helpful. It really isn't. And we want to continue to help our children along their journey and through their adventures as much as we can, while also watching them fail sometimes, because that is okay, for sure.
Yeah, and it's like, you're so right, Mom. I shouldn't have spent my money, said no teenager ever, right? If you say it, they will automatically go in the opposite direction. So let them come there on their own, and just they know. I trust me. They know. Kids know too, and they kind of went, oh yeah. But you talking about it, that's a helpful.
Well, as parents, I mean, there's an unwritten rule that according to teenagers, we can't be right ever, right? And so that's okay, because we were all teenagers once too. Mm-hmm. So hopefully this, list and this 15-minute conversation kind of gave some parents some tips and tricks to just handling all those I wants over the holiday season.
And even if you don't sell holidays or don't exchange gifts, all of the information holds true for our lives in general right now, and period, because as we advance more into technology, it gets more and more and more and more and more expensive. So it's good conversations to have about anything. And I'm going to post in the links a good graphic I found on gratitude, and then also a link to a website with some good ideas for how to, through different ages and stages, teach your kids about needs and wants, different age appropriate things you can do.
Excellent. So, and I think next week we'll kind of move a little bit more specific into gratitude, as it'll be, the second 2 weeks before Christmas. Sometimes we all need to be grateful for things. So, all right. Well, thanks for hanging out, everybody, and listening.
Yes, and again, if you need any more information or support, please go to our website, www.fcss.ca, and we will see you back here next week at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.